Ethan Caldwell didn't raise his voice when he handed her the papers. He didn't need to. They were standing in the kitchen of the Tribeca penthouse just after dusk. The city pressed up against the glass like it always was, loud, ambitious, convinced it belonged to him. The marble island separated them, cold and immaculate, a surface chosen more for appearance than warmth. Ethan placed the documents down carefully, aligning the edges with the precision of someone who believed control lived in details. "Sign it," he said. Claire stood a few feet away, one hand resting lightly against the wall, the other unconsciously curved over her stomach. 12 weeks. Not enough to show unless you knew where to look. Enough that she felt the weight of it in every breath. From the living room came a soft laugh. Not cruel, not loud, amused. Madeline Rhodes reclined on the sofa, red heels crossed at the ankle, phone loose in her hand. She wore confidence the way she wore silk. Smooth, practiced, deliberate. She had sat at this table before, drunk wine here. Asked Claire about her day, about her hobbies, about whether she ever thought of doing something more ambitious with her life. Madeline glanced up. "I told you she wouldn't fight it." Girls like her never did. Claire didn't respond. Silence had always been safer than defense. Ethan exhaled, already impatient. "My attorney made this simple. You don't have assets. You don't have a claim. This doesn't need to turn ugly." Madeline smiled without warmth. "Honestly, Claire, you should be relieved. Not everyone gets a clean exit." Clean. The word hung there, waiting for reaction. Inside her, something shifted. A light flutter, almost tentative, as if the baby were testing the world. Claire's fingers pressed more firmly against her abdomen. She lowered her gaze, not in submission, but in calculation. She had learned a long time ago that power didn't rush. "You can take your time," Ethan added, though his tone contradicted the words. "But I do have somewhere to be." Claire stepped forward, heels quiet against the floor. She didn't sit. She didn't touch the pen. Instead, she looked at the papers. No spousal support. No property. No future obligation. Efficient. Designed for someone who would leave quietly. "You already packed my things," she said. Ethan nodded once. "They'll be moved out tomorrow." Madeline leaned forward. "I told him Friday was generous. You could have been gone tonight." Claire looked at her for the first time, not with anger, with clarity. "You seem very comfortable here," Claire said. Madeline shrugged. "Someone has to be." That was the insult meant to break her. Claire didn't rise to it. She reached into her bag instead and placed something small on the marble between the papers and the pen. Tissue paper, folded neatly, deliberately. Madeline frowned. "What's that?" Claire unfolded it slowly, revealing a pair of tiny white shoes. New, unworn. Ethan's breath caught. "What is that?" he asked. Claire met his eyes. "I was going to tell you tonight." Madeline laughed, sharp this time. "Is this a joke?" "No," Claire said calmly. "I'm pregnant." The room changed, not dramatically. Subtly, like air pressure dropping before a storm. Madeline's smile froze. "That's not funny. I'm not joking." Ethan shook his head once. "You're lying." Claire didn't argue. She didn't reach for proof. She simply rested her hand over her stomach again. Madeline stood abruptly. "Wow, that's low. Using a fake pregnancy now? You really are desperate." Claire's voice stayed even. "You laughed in my kitchen while sleeping with my husband. I'm not the one lacking dignity." Ethan rubbed his face. "Even if it were true, it changes nothing." "I know," Claire said. That unsettled him more than tears would have. She picked up the pen. Signed. Her hand didn't shake. She slid the papers back across the island. Ethan gathered them quickly, relief flickering through his expression. "Good. This is for the best. Madeline exhaled, tension draining. See? Simple. Claire placed the baby's shoes back into her bag. She reached for her phone. Typed 4 words. Freeze everything. Effective immediately. She slipped the phone away before either of them noticed. I'll be in the guest room tonight, she said. Tomorrow will be busy. Madeline laughed. For you? Doubt it. Claire didn't respond. She walked down the hallway, closed the door softly behind her, and locked it. Inside the quiet room, she sat on the edge of the bed and finally let her hand rest fully over her stomach. I've got you, she whispered. Her phone vibrated. One message. It was enough. Outside, New York kept moving, unaware that something had already begun to collapse. Morning came in thin and pale through the glass, the kind of light that made everything look cleaner than it felt. Ethan Caldwell was already awake. He stood barefoot in the kitchen, phone in hand, staring at the screen like it had personally insulted him. The marble beneath his feet was cold. He refreshed the banking app again. Same message. Account temporarily unavailable. He frowned, jaw tightening. He switched apps. Then another. Then another. Every screen told him the same thing. Unavailable. 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 That's not funny, he muttered, tapping harder this time, as if pressure could force compliance. From the hallway, Madeline emerged slowly, wrapped in one of his shirts, hair loose, confidence still intact but dulled at the edges by sleep. She leaned against the counter, watching him. What's wrong? She asked. There's a glitch, Ethan said without looking up. Madeline picked up her phone, scrolling lazily. It's probably maintenance. All of them. She paused. What do you mean, all of them? Ethan finally looked at her. Every account. Her posture changed. Subtle. Alert. That doesn't happen, she said. He forced a laugh. That's what I thought. His phone buzzed. An email. He opened it, skimmed the first line, then read it again more slowly. Evergreen Holdings has formally withdrawn all active funding effective immediately. His mouth went dry. Madeline noticed the change in his face. What? He handed her the phone. She read it once, then again, color draining from her expression. That's not real. Evergreen Holdings didn't make mistakes. They didn't panic. They didn't act impulsively. They simply acted. Ethan's chest tightened. They can't do that overnight. There are contracts. Madeline was already typing furiously. I'll call my contact. She pressed the phone to her ear, straight to voicemail. She tried again. Same result. Another vibration hit Ethan's phone. Another email. Your corporate credit line has been suspended pending internal review. No, Ethan said quietly. Madeline lowered her phone. My paycheck just bounced. He looked at her sharply. What? She turned her screen toward him. The notification was still there, unforgiving. Ethan shook his head. That's impossible. Madeline's voice sharpened. It just happened. Ethan grabbed his laptop, opening it on the island with more force than necessary. Numbers loaded slowly, lagging just enough to make his pulse jump. When they appeared, they were wrong. Balances were frozen. Grayed out. Inaccessible. This is temporary, he said, more to himself than to her. Madeline crossed her arms. Ethan, I said it's temporary. She studied him. What did you do? He snapped. Nothing. Silence followed. Not calm. Suspicious. Another email arrived. Notice of audit initiation. Madeline stared at the screen. What does that mean? Ethan swallowed. It means someone's looking. Looking at what? He didn't answer. Madeline stepped back slowly. You told me everything was clean. It is... Is it? Their eyes locked. Ethan's phone buzzed again. This time it was an email. It was a text. James Carter. Good morning, Mr. Caldwell. I recommend you retain counsel immediately. Madeline leaned in. Who's James Carter? Ethan stared at the name longer than necessary. No one, he said, but his voice betrayed him. From the hallway came the sound of quiet footsteps. Claire entered the kitchen. She was dressed already. Navy dress, clean lines, understated elegance. Her hair was pulled back, face calm, composed. There was no sign of the woman who had been humiliated the night before. Madeline watched her with open suspicion. Why are you dressed like that? Claire poured herself a glass of water. I have plans. Ethan turned sharply. Did you do something? Claire took a sip, unhurried. No, Madeline scoffed. She wouldn't even know where to start. Claire didn't look at her. That's true. Ethan exhaled, tension easing slightly. This is corporate noise. It'll clear. Claire nodded. Possibly. Madeline narrowed her eyes. What do you mean, possibly? Claire set the glass down. I mean, I've learned not to assume outcomes. Madeline laughed. You sound like you think you're involved. Claire met her gaze calmly. I usually am. Ethan frowned. You're not attending the Harrington Gala tonight. Claire tilted her head. Why wouldn't I? It would be inappropriate, he said, given everything. Madeline smiled. Exactly. It's my debut. Claire considered that. Embarrassment is best avoided, she said softly. She turned toward the hallway. Behind her, Madeline's phone buzzed. My car won't start, Madeline said slowly. Ethan froze. What? The app says access revoked. His phone vibrated immediately after. Vehicle access suspended. Ethan laughed once, hollow. This is insane. Madeline's voice dropped. Whose name are the cars registered under? He didn't answer. Claire paused at the doorway. Ethan! He looked up. You should answer your investors, she said calmly. She left. The door closed. Madeline stared at him. What did she mean by that? Ethan sat down heavily. Because something had begun rearranging itself in his mind. The penthouse purchased outright. The sudden investor interest. The silence that followed doubt. Claire's comfort around people he once feared. His phone buzzed again. Another text. James Carter. Evergreen Holdings has withdrawn all support. Please advise how you wish to proceed. Madeline's voice trembled. Ethan. He didn't respond. Outside, the city moved on, unaware that time had shifted direction. And for the first time, Ethan Caldwell felt it. Waiting. By the time Ethan reached his office, denial had burned itself out. What replaced it wasn't clarity. It was a thin, metallic panic that sat just beneath the skin, making every sound sharper, every delay heavier than it should have been. The elevator ride felt longer than usual. The mirrored walls reflected a man he didn't recognize, tie loosened, eyes restless, confidence leaking in places he couldn't seal. When the doors opened, conversation outside his office faltered. People looked busy too quickly. Screens were adjusted. Phones were flipped face down. He noticed. He always noticed. Inside his office, he dropped his briefcase onto the desk and stared out over the city. From this height, New York looked orderly, predictable, like it obeyed rules. His phone buzzed again. Another investor. He ignored it. Instead, he opened his laptop and pulled up the company dashboard, refreshing until a screen finally stabilized. The numbers were still there, but they felt wrong now, like furniture that had been rearranged while he wasn't looking. Capital locked. Transfers pending. Alerts stacked in red. A knock came at the door. Come in, he said. Madeline stepped inside, heels quieter than usual, posture rigid. Her confidence from the night before hadn't survived the morning. They won't let me access the executive garage, she said. Security says my badge is under review. Ethan rubbed his temples. I'm handling it. Are you? She snapped. Because it doesn't feel like you're handling anything. He looked up sharply. Watch your tone. She laughed, but it cracked halfway through. That used to work. The words landed harder than she intended. Ethan stood. I didn't ask for this. Madeline crossed her arms. You asked for power. You just didn't think it could disappear. It hasn't disappeared. She stared at him. Then where is it? Silence stretched. Not calm. Unforgiving. Another knock. This time it was his assistant, pale and stiff. Mr. Caldwell, compliance needs to speak with you. Now. Ethan's jaw tightened. Tell them I'm in a meeting. They said it's not optional. Madeline stepped back. Compliance. He shot her a look. Go wait outside. She hesitated. Ethan. Outside. She left. The door closed. Ethan exhaled slowly, forcing his shoulders back, posture correcting itself out of habit. When compliance entered, they didn't sit. Evergreen Holdings has filed an internal report, the man said. It raises concerns about misallocated funds. Ethan laughed once. That's ridiculous. Is it? Yes. The woman beside him glanced at her tablet. We've also received notice that a federal audit is being initiated. The word federal settled heavily in the room. That's excessive, Ethan said. This can be handled privately. The man met his eyes. Not anymore. Ethan felt heat rise in his chest. Who initiated this? The woman didn't answer immediately. Then she did. Whitmore Capital. The name rang faintly, like a bell heard underwater. Ethan frowned. That doesn't make sense. It does, the man said, if you know who they are. Ethan waved them out before his hands started shaking. When they left, he sank back into his chair, staring at the ceiling, trying to slow his breathing. Whitmore. The name slid backward through his memory, catching on moments he'd ignored because they'd been convenient. The night he couldn't secure funding and woke up to an invitation he hadn't earned. The meeting that had gone too smoothly. The contracts that never required negotiation. Claire's quiet suggestions. Her patience. Her refusal to explain herself. He had called it support. He had called it luck. He had never called it power. His phone buzzed. A message from Madeline. We need to talk. Now. He didn't reply. Instead, another memory surfaced, uninvited. It was late. Rain tapping against the windows. He had been pacing, voice sharp of frustration, railing against people who wouldn't return his calls. Claire had been sitting on the couch, laptop open, listening without interrupting. Give it a day, she'd said. The next morning, everything changed. At the time, he'd kissed her forehead and told her she believed in him better than anyone else. Now, the memory felt different. He stood abruptly and walked a window, pressing his palm against the glass. Across the city, Claire moved through a very different morning. She stood in a quiet suite overlooking Central Park, hands resting on the back of a chair as a stylist adjusted the fall of her dress. The room was calm, efficient, respectful. No one rushed her. No one explained things she already knew. Her phone vibrated once on the table. She didn't pick it up. Instead, she watched the city below, green and gray and layered with history. Her reflection in the glass looked composed, but there was something else there now, too. Resolution. She reached for a small velvet box on the table and opened it. Inside lay a diamond pendant, understated, familiar. Her mother's. For a moment, her fingers hovered over it. Then she closed the box and slid it into her bag. Are you ready? Someone asked softly. Yes, Claire said. Back at the office, Ethan's phone buzzed again. This time he answered. "What?" he snapped. Madeline's voice was tight. "Security just asked me to leave the building." "What?" "They said my access is suspended pending investigation." Ethan's heart kicked hard against his ribs. "That's a mistake. They didn't think so." He opened his mouth to reassure her, but nothing came out, because for the first time, the thought formed fully. This wasn't a mistake. This was movement, intentional, coordinated, quiet. He ended the call without explanation and grabbed his jacket, mind racing. Tonight, he told himself, tonight would fix this. The Harrington Gala had always been about visibility, about being seen in the right rooms. He would explain. He would charm. He would regain control. Across the city, Claire stepped into a waiting car, the door closing softly behind her. The driver asked where to. "The Meridia Hotel," she said. "Ballroom in trance." The car pulled into traffic. Time, once patient, began to narrow its focus, and neither of them could stop it now. The ballroom didn't react when Robert Whitmore entered. It recalibrated. Conversation thinned mid-sentence. Glasses paused halfway to lips. People didn't turn all at once. Attention shifted in waves, subtle and involuntary, like gravity adjusting its pull. The kind of response that didn't come from fame alone, but from recognition, from memory, from consequence. Ethan felt it before he saw it. He stood near the entrance with Madeline, her arm looped through his, her red dress chosen carefully for visibility. She was still talking, still confident, still rehearsing the version of the night she believed was inevitable. Then she stopped. Ethan followed her gaze. Robert Whitmore moved through the doorway with unhurried precision. Silver hair, tailored charcoal suit, posture relaxed in a way that suggested he had never needed permission to enter any room. He didn't scan for acknowledgement. He didn't need to. It came to him. A judge near the stage straightened. A senator lowered his glass. Two men Ethan had once waited months to meet fell silent without realizing they had done so. Madeline's fingers tightened around Ethan's arm. "Who is that?" Ethan didn't answer. He was watching security subtly reposition, clearing space without instruction, creating a corridor that hadn't existed seconds before. Robert Whitmore crossed the room as if it already belonged to him. Claire stepped forward. The distance between them closed naturally, without haste, without ceremony. He kissed her cheek, the gesture restrained, familiar, unperformed. "My daughter," he said. The words landed quietly. They didn't need amplification. Ethan's chest constricted. Madeline whispered. "Did he just say—" Robert's hand settled briefly at the small of Claire's back. Protective, possessive in a way that didn't invite challenge. Someone nearby murmured his name. Then another voice followed. And another. Whitmore. The name moved outward, gaining weight as it traveled, rearranging the room with every repetition. Ethan felt the floor tilt. Memories began sliding into place without permission. The penthouse purchased outright. No mortgage. No questions. The investor who appeared when he had been ready to fold. The way doors opened before he knocked. The way Claire never flinched in rooms that made him perform. Madeline shook her head slowly. "She's not who he thought she was." Ethan swallowed. "She is—" That was the problem. Across the room, Claire spoke with a man Ethan recognized immediately, someone whose approval had once taken him years to earn. The man leaned in when Claire spoke. Listened, not politely. Seriously. Ethan took a step forward. Security moved. "Sir," the guard said quietly, "please remain here." Ethan stared at him. "I'm her husband." The guard didn't blink. "Not tonight." Madeline laughed brittle. "This is ridiculous." The guard didn't look at her. Ethan tried again. "Claire." She turned slowly, not startled, Not surprised. Just present. Yes, Ethan? Her voice carried easily. Calm. Public. What is this? He asked. Why didn't you tell me? She studied him, not unkindly, but without softness. You never asked, she said. You told me who you thought I was. I believed you. Madeline stepped forward. You set us up. Claire shifted her gaze to her. No, she said. You revealed yourselves. Madeline flushed. You don't get to humiliate us like this. Claire tilted her head slightly. You humiliated yourselves in my home. Phones appeared. Not all at once. One, then another, then several more. Witnesses multiplied. Robert Whitmore stepped toward the stage. The room followed him without realizing it was doing so. The master of ceremonies cleared his throat, voice steadier than his hands. Ladies and gentlemen, he said, before we continue tonight's program, we are honored to recognize the primary benefactor of the Harrington Children's Fund. Applause rose, instinctive and heavy. Please welcome Robert Whitmore, chairman of Whitmore Capital. The applause deepened. Ethan's knees weakened. Robert stood behind the podium, hands resting lightly on either side. He didn't smile. Tonight is about children, he said. About futures. About responsibility. His gaze swept the room once, pausing briefly on Ethan. Opportunity reveals character, Robert continued. And entitlement reveals truth. A murmur moved through the crowd. Robert gestured toward Claire. This gala was organized by my daughter. Applause followed immediately. Ethan felt the word daughter echo in his chest. Madeline's grip slipped from his arm. She's an heir, she whispered. Ethan nodded slowly. And I just divorced her. The applause faded. Robert's voice remained steady. My daughter once asked me to remain invisible, he said. She wanted to know who would love her without knowing her last name. The room held its breath. She has her answer. Ethan stepped forward again, desperation finally breaking through restraint. Claire, he said louder now. Every head turned. The silence that followed was brutal. She faced him fully. Yes. You're pregnant, he said, the words finally finding shape. She nodded once. Yes. Something collapsed in his expression. You didn't tell me. You didn't listen, she replied. Robert's voice cut through the space, calm and final. My daughter is expecting, he said. Any further disrespect will be handled appropriately. Security stepped closer. Madeline looked around, panic breaking through her composure. This is insane. Claire watched her without triumph, without anger, just certainty. This night isn't about you, Claire said. It never was. Ethan stared at her, seeing her clearly for the first time, and realizing he no longer had access. Not to her, not to the room, not to the future he thought was his. The gala continued around them, polished and composed, as if nothing extraordinary had happened. But everything had. Time had stopped waiting, and the consequences were no longer private. Ethan didn't remember moving. One moment he was standing near the entrance, the weight of the room pressing on him from every direction, and the next he was several steps closer to the center of the ballroom, his body acting on instinct rather than permission. It was a reflex born from years of believing proximity equal control. Security intercepted him smoothly, not with force, but with certainty. Sir, one of them said quietly, hand open, unmoving. This area is restricted. Ethan stared at the hand as if it were a mistake. You can't be serious. The guard didn't argue. He didn't need to. Madeline's voice rose behind him. Do you know who he is? The guard turned his head just enough to acknowledge her presence. Yes. That answer unsettled her more than refusal would have. Ethan took a breath, forced his shoulders back. I need to speak to my wife. A pause. Then the guard said, "She's asked not to be disturbed." The words landed harder than the applause ever had. Across the room, Claire stood beside her father, composed, listening as the donor spoke to her in low tones. She nodded politely, asked a measured question, smiled once. The ease with which she moved through the space was unmistakable now. This wasn't new to her. This was home. Ethan felt something fracture in his chest. He raised his voice. "Claire." Heads turned again. The sound cut through the music, the chatter, the polished atmosphere of restraint. She turned slowly. "Yes." Her voice didn't rise to meet his. It stayed exactly where it was. "This isn't over," he said. "You can't just—" She waited. That was the difference. He was speaking from panic. She was listening from position. "You signed the papers," she said calmly. "You told me I had nothing. You were very clear." Madeline pushed past him, her composure cracking now, the sheen of confidence finally peeling away. "You lied to us. All of this is manipulation." Claire's gaze moved to her. It didn't harden. It didn't soften. "It's protection," she said. "You confuse the two because you've never needed either." Madeline laughed, sharp and brittle. "You think you've won?" Claire didn't answer immediately. She looked at her father instead. He nodded once, almost imperceptibly. The timing mattered. The ballroom doors opened again. This time, the shift was unmistakable. Two men in dark suits entered with purpose, badges already visible, movements efficient and unhurried. They didn't scan the room. They didn't hesitate. They walked directly toward Ethan. The music softened, then stopped. Conversations died mid-word. Phones rose higher now, no longer discreet. The lead agent stopped a few feet from Ethan. "Ethan Caldwell?" Ethan stared at him. "Yes. You're under arrest for fraud, misappropriation of funds, and falsifying investor disclosures." The words echoed. Madeline gasped. "This is a mistake." The agent turned to her. "Madeline Rhodes?" She froze. "What?" "You're being detained as an accessory." Her mouth opened, closed. "I didn't know." The agent's expression didn't change. "You knew enough." Handcuffs clicked into place with a sound that cut through the room like glass. Ethan's legs weakened. "Claire," he said, voice breaking for the first time. "Please." She stepped forward then. Just one step. Not toward him. Toward the space between them. "I heard you," she said quietly. "Every word. You didn't just leave me. You erased me. You mocked me. You planned to parade your mistress through an event I built." Her hand moved instinctively to her stomach. "You don't get to ask me for mercy now." Madeline began to cry, mascara streaking, voice rising in panic. "Ethan, do something." He couldn't. The agents guided them toward the exit. The crowd parted easily, instinctively, like water around something sinking. As Ethan passed Claire, he looked at her stomach again, understanding finally settling in with devastating clarity. "You're really pregnant," he whispered. "I know," she said. "I've known for weeks." He swallowed. "I never meant." She didn't let him finish. "This child will never wonder if she was loved for the wrong reasons." That was the moment something in him collapsed completely. The doors closed behind them. The room exhaled. No applause followed. No cheers. No celebration. Just silence. Claire stood still as the weight of the night settled around her. Her father placed a hand on her shoulder, steady, grounding. "You handled that well," he said. She nodded, eyes still on the doors. "I handled it the only way it could be handled." James Carter appeared at her side, leather portfolio in hand. "The divorce documents," he said softly. "As instructed." Claire took them, flipped through the pages without reading. She already knew every line. She signed. The pen felt heavier than it should have. When she handed it back, something lifted, not joy, release. The gala resumed slowly, cautiously, as if the room itself needed permission to move forward. Claire didn't stay. She walked out through a side exit, away from cameras and whispers, the night air cool against her skin. Her car waited. As she settled into the seat, she placed both hands over her stomach again. "We're okay," she whispered. The city moved on around her, indifferent and vast. Behind her, consequences unfolded in fluorescent hallways and quiet rooms. Ahead of her, something cleaner waited. Not revenge. Truth. Claire didn't look back as the car pulled away from the curb. The city slid past the tinted windows and fragments, storefront lights, blurred faces, traffic signals changing color without meaning. For the first time all night, there were no eyes on her, no witnesses, no expectations, just movement. She rested her head against the seat, one hand still settled over her stomach, the other loose in her lap. Her breathing slowed gradually, the adrenaline draining in careful stages, as if her body understood that whatever came next needed steadiness, not release. Her phone buzzed once. She didn't pick it up. Robert sat across from her, silent, his posture unchanged, gaze fixed forward. He had said everything that mattered earlier. He knew better than to crowd the aftermath. After a long moment, he spoke. "You were composed." Claire smiled faintly. "I was honest." "That's harder." The car stopped at a red light. Outside, a couple laughed loudly as they crossed the street, careless and anonymous. Claire watched them pass. "He never loved me," she said quietly. It wasn't a question. Robert didn't rush to contradict her. "He loved what he thought you were." Claire nodded. "That's what hurts." The light turned green. The car moved again. Across the city, in a brightly lit holding room that smelled faintly of disinfectant and old paper, Ethan Caldwell sat with his hands cuffed in front of him, staring at the floor. The room hummed softly, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, indifferent to status, ambition, or regret. Madeline sat several feet away, crying openly now, her composure fully gone. She tried to speak to him twice. He didn't respond. The reality had settled in stages. First the arrest, then the whispers, then the phones taken away, then the stillness. Ethan replayed the last months in his head, searching for the moment where he could have stopped this, where he could have asked a different question, where he could have listened instead of assumed. The memory that kept returning wasn't the gala. It was the kitchen, the way Claire had stood quietly while he spoke over her, the way she had signed the papers without trembling, the way he had believed that meant victory. He swallowed hard. Too late. Back in the car, Claire's phone buzzed again. This time, she answered. "Yes," she said. James Carter's voice came through, calm and precise. "Everything has been filed. The divorce is final. Full custody will be uncontested." "Thank you," Claire replied. "There will be media inquiries," he continued. "We can shield you completely." Claire looked out the window. "No, let it pass." A pause. Understood. She ended the call and slipped the phone back into her bag. The car slowed as it approached her building. The doorman straightened as she arrived, opening the door with quiet respect. "Good evening, Miss Whitmore." "Good evening," she said. She stepped inside, the lobby warm and hushed, the kind of space designed to absorb shock rather than amplify it. The elevator ride was silent. When the doors opened, she walked down the hallway alone. Inside her apartment, she removed her shoes and placed them neatly by the door. The quiet wrapped around her immediately, thick and reassuring. She moved to the window, pulling the curtain back just enough to see the city lights below. New York went on. She rested both hands over her stomach again. I know, she whispered softly. I feel it too. There was no celebration, no rush of triumph, just a deep, steady sense of alignment, like something dislocated had finally slid back into place. She turned away from the window and walked toward the bedroom, already thinking about tomorrow, about doctor's appointments, about names, about a future that would not require explanation. Somewhere else in the city, doors closed with heavy finality. But here, in this quiet, something else opened, not revenge, not victory, peace. And for the first time, Claire allowed herself to believe it would last.